Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. I think we have a quorum. Let's see. Yes. Good. Just to remind everybody, are we still being taped?
We are.
Okay. And I see we have a new committee member. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you very much.
Does everybody know you? Okay.
Glad to have you.
Can you give the benefit to the folks, just the 60-second, who am I?
Oh, yes. My name is Nancy Stanley. I'm the Director of Marketing for St. Joe Club and Resorts. So our portfolio includes Watercolor Inn, the Pearl Hotel, vacation rentals, Camp Creek, Shark's Tooth, Origins Golf Course, and some beach clubs and spas. So,
And Madam Chairman, we have one more new face in the room today. And so I'll ask Mr. Jay Tusa to introduce himself. He is our new Executive Director.
Thanks for the introduction. Just looking forward to this process. Obviously, this is new to me from the Walton County aspect of it. So looking forward to the process and getting to know everybody. So thanks.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's take a look at the minutes. Everybody should have gotten this beforehand, but just in case you haven't had a chance, or if there's anybody that has any comments or corrections to make.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. All right.
All for vote.
Oh, yes. Is there, all those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. That carries. New business. I see research presentation, Philip Downs.
Yes, thank you. We are fortunate that Joey and Philip are here today. So whomever you want to kick it off, I'll drive to the best of my ability.
Very good. Should we use the mic here?
No mic, room is mic'd up above.
Excellent. Hi, I'm Philip Downs with Downs St. Germain Research.
And I'm Joseph St. Germain with Down St. Germain Research.
And we're going to be sharing with you the results of the visitor tracking study from winter. The way that we have traditionally done these, we wait 3 months and then collect data at the end of each 3-month period and then present that. So we're presenting a winter 16, and we're going to make some comparisons to 2015. And it's a good news story. Over $3 billion in economic impact last year in 2015, over 3 million visitors. And if you look at the TDT, it's up 14% year to date over last year, 19% March to March. So things are rocking and rolling. And we're going to show you a profile of the people who are coming here, where they're from, how much money they're spending, what they do when they're here, those types of things. So looking at some comparisons, John, can you go ahead and shoot that up to the...
Sorry. Yep.
So looking at some comparisons, you see the percent change in the right column, and we won't kill you with numbers today. We have probably about 15,000 in this report. So we'll just focus on some things, but going down about 5 lines there on the right, total visitors up 8.4%. This is winter to winter, and you know all too well that this is the slow season as you look at occupancy below 50% on that first row. But visitors are up 8+%. TDT tracks with that nicely up 7.8%. And the total economic impact, even during the slow season, is about $650 million.
And just a quick question. This carries, what months is this of?
This is December, January, February.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan. Good question. So, did we skip 2 there?
Sorry? No?
No? Okay. So when we look at some of the profile information, people coming here, travel party size 3.4, that's up slightly. We have about 3 in 10 coming with kids. But one of the nice statistics in this report, you see the household income level up from last year up to 120,000. I know there's been a lot of discussion internally here about, gee, we'd like to have more visitors, but we'd like to have enhanced upscale visitors. And so you see that trend in terms of household income going nicely. And the direct spend, which is the fourth row from the bottom, that's up nearly $200 to $42.53, the direct spend from individuals and travel parties who are here. And if you look at the next line down, first-time visitors, almost 1 out of 4 visitors during the winter was a first-time visitor, so you keep attracting. And you also have a very loyal group. Nearly half, 45% of the winter visitors have been here at least 10 times. And then with the issue of branding the term South Walton, that's not making the progress that we might hope. But you see 2 out of 10 visitors use that term. Next slide, John. Great stats here on the experience. 96% will return. The rating was 9 out of 10. Both of those figures are up. They're planning further out this past year, 4 to 5 months out, and they're using things like visitsouthwalton.com or websites from one of the 16 beach areas. And the origins of Florida, Georgia, Alabama, we're still very much a drive market, but we see more action coming in from Texas, from Illinois, as marketing has focused on Dallas and Houston and Chicago. We're seeing some impacts there. Good job. And things that they do, I mean, they love the restaurants here. They love to come and just relax, unwind, read a book, hang out at the beach. So that's a summary of what they do. And so Joseph will give you some basics about the 2016 winter visitor.
Yeah, I'll pick up, and I'm not going to mention everything on the slide because Philip's covered some of what we have here. But here's a very simple breakdown of what your South Walton winter visitor looks like. As you mentioned, income is up. Still about 3 out of 4 are coming from the southeast, and about 30% are traveling with kids, and another half are traveling with 2 people. So most of those generally are couples. As we break down where they're coming from, Atlanta's still your #1 market. Pensacola, New Orleans still up at the top. And then as you can see, things like, as Philip mentioned, some of your markets, St. Louis, Chicago, Nashville, some of the 5 markets have make up a significant portion of your winter visitor. As we're breaking into the states, we look at these 10 states, and that's 5 out of 6 visitors are coming from there. As Philip mentioned, we're still a drive market, so your main feeder states are Florida, Georgia, Alabama. 4 out of 5 are staying in a condo, while another about 1 in 10 are staying in a hotel, motel, or a personal condo. Again, 5 out of 6 are driving to South Walton. If they are flying in, it's almost an even split between Northwest Florida Regional and Northwest Florida Beaches International. So that's almost an even split there. They're spending almost a week in South Walton. If you include those who are staying over a month, that number increases to 14 days as your average stay. Why they're coming? They want to relax, they want to unwind, they want to come down here with the family. Again, Philip touched on this briefly, but this is great news. I mean, give a rating 9 out of 10 for South Walton, 96%. You want to return. I mean, anytime we have that in the high 80s to low 90s, we consider that good. You're above that. So again, this is more of that good news story. The gap analysis, you know, I'm going to read all of these, but you can kind of see the white sand and turquoise waters. You're exceeding everyone's expectations of family vacation, returning to familiar places and rituals. These are places that are important to them, but also where you exceed and they rate South Walton higher than what they need.
You know, Joseph, John, can go back there and say, you know, the value proposition has always been a difficult challenge for South Walton. And you look at about the 5th one down value for your travel dollar. I mean, it's still a little bit out of sync. You tend to expect. There is some good news though in the 3rd row down, the customer service. That gap has narrowed, so expectations versus performance is closer to being on track.
spending, as Philip mentioned, it's up. It's up from, this time you're looking about a little, almost 4,300 per trip. Last time was just over 4,000. The big expenditures are accommodations, restaurants, and shopping. Where they plan, you know, about 1 and 3 are planning 6 more months in advance. So you're looking at a long-term travel cycle or planning cycle. Where are they getting information? They're looking at friends and family. They're going online. I mean, the good news is 30% are using one of the beach area websites in South Walton, and then 1 in 4 are using visitsouthwalton.com. Not surprisingly, almost everyone has a smartphone or a tablet, and 3 and 4 are using it while they're here. Either they're planning their trip to get around or what have you. So mobile is an important part. You know, almost 10% are using the Beach Finders app. Use of the visitor guide is strong, especially the online version. 1% stop in here, high ratings, almost 9.5 out of 10 is very strong. 8 and 9 are considering going to only one of the 16 beach communities. And as Philip mentioned, only 20% use the term South Walton when describing the area. What are they doing? Restaurants, relaxing, unwinding, shopping. This was fairly similar to this time last year. You know,
Does that mean, excuse me if I may, on that last slide, does that mean when you see the beach coming in behind, relaxing, shopping, and restaurants, does that mean they're coming here for those things primarily, or that's where?
It's what they do when they're here.
When they're here.
right.
So they're out more than they are at the beach.
They're doing other things.
Okay.
That's good.
One of the most subtle things we've seen for many, many years is that the importance of attributes in making a decision is essentially the same list of actually doing, however, they don't align. And one of the things we spent a lot of time looking at is the eco-exploring. The consumer, when considering should they come here or should they come to Orange Beach, is using our attributes of eco-exploring and paddling as a very important trait in trying to determine it. And then when we ask them, did you actually do it when you were here? No. So that's a really important thing, but you see it in our marketing, right? You see it in our ads, our big hero images, paddling the Western Dune Lake. We know not everybody paddles the Dune Lake while they're here, but if that tipped the scale and said, that destination has even more to offer than the other one, and maybe we'll do it, or maybe we won't, or maybe we'll just watch people do it. It's been a very strong thing. It's been very consistent for many quarters and many years.
John, in doing some research in other destinations, the paddleboarding image is really strong with northern consumers, especially in Canada.
It's aspirational, right? It's almost a fantasy that you would get to do that in such a pretty place. Good.
Not necessarily that they're going to do it, but they have the option to do it. You know, where they visited, Sandestin, Miramar, Seaside, and all the way down. And this is where your visitors would visit here in the winter months, where they've been at some point in their lives when visiting South.
That's interesting. I mean, 88% only considered one beach community on their last trip, but they have shopped around and they have settled on where they want to be.
Your median age for this period was 57. As you can see, only 8% were under 35, 30% over 65. Your estimated median income, $120 million, as Phil mentioned, this was up from the same quarter last year, and 1 in 5 have an income over $200,000.
And that distribution, typically the distribution is more bell-shaped, and maybe we just didn't run it up high enough, but it's interesting that the 21% is greater than the 15%. We've got some very wealthy individuals stuff in the office.
And it's the methodology for the survey. It's an internet survey, over 500 interviews, so you feel comfortable with the reliability and the validity of these results. And as Dan asked, these are people who visited in December 2015 or January, February 2016.
and we really appreciate the properties who participate in giving us access to their guests.
And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Philip to discuss some of our pretty GIS maps.
You know, you've seen the, I'm not sure whether we presented, yes.
Sorry, before we move on, just a quick question. I feel like this current winter research doesn't capture the long-term snowbird guests as much. It's just shorter stays, the demographic is a little bit younger than our traditional snowbird, and I'm just curious, do you think maybe they're not participating of these 516 people who filled out the online survey? Do you think, I'm just curious, because it used to be like average 10-night stay, and again, because it's waiting in, both those more leisure transient visitors that come through, coupled in with your snowbirds who are here for a month or more time.
So I'm not quite sure of the question.
I'm just wondering if this captures the snowbirds.
Well, yes. And if you look at the length of stay, and we looked at individuals who were here for a month or less, and their average stay was around 6 nights. But then when factoring in the snowbirds,
So we took out the people who were
no, we
here.
didn't take them out.
Okay.
But in presenting that particular statistic, yes, we did. For the full report, everybody's in there. Snowbirds are in there.
Okay.
14.3 if you include those long-term stays. Keeping in mind, if you stay, is it more than 30 days, you're not subject to bed tax, correct?
180.
180, 6 months?
6 months.
6 months?
So usually, again, this 6.5 number is more 10, 14, it's just,
Well, 14.3 if you want to compare those apples to apples.
oh, I see it down here below
Yeah.
now.
So that's for Tracy. That's back.
I gotcha, okay. You didn't verbally say it, and I wasn't reading along. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and so we have shown you GIS maps for 2015 for all 4 seasons. And since this is our second winter of collecting data, we thought we would put together a winter map, and then we'll do the same thing in spring. So this is combining the last 2 winters, and we caution everybody in interpreting these because we're looking at, roughly 1,400 data points, but then when you start to break it down by city, then you're looking at maybe 20 or 25 or 50 or 55 people, and so the numbers are not quite as stable. But they do present some interesting things to think about. And this shows spending per trip, and you can see that mostly the further away you are, the more you're spending, the longer you stay. And you look down towards the bottom, you've got a lot of Florida destinations or nearby destinations. And Tallahassee is not a poor city, but the spend is only less than half than the spend of Washington D.C., and that's correlated to the length of time that people are here.
So obviously, you know, if you're going to spend $10,000 to try to stimulate some visitors, would you want to spend $10,000 to get 10 visitors out of Tallahassee or out of Dallas-Fort Worth? It's a pretty easy choice that you have a much greater chance for a return on investment. And we're seeing that not just in winter, all quarters, annual, however you slice and dice it. And it's not close. It's dramatic differences in spending.
And that is an excellent point in looking at the ROI of marketing dollars, going after these different markets. Go ahead to the next slide. So how long are they staying? And this is what we're talking about. You get down to Tallahassee, 4th from the bottom, only 2.8 nights on average. And then, Tracy, getting into your snowbird question, you can see the length of trips from some of the northern destinations, much longer. Okay. First-time visitors, I mean, this is terrific. When marketing is focusing on a market like Houston to see that you've got 55% first-time visitors. But again, we caution because the sample sizes are fairly small here. Loyal visitors, you almost invert the map here. We've got folks from nearby drive markets who continue to come back time after time with high satisfaction rates in the mid to high 90s. You would expect that. You do a great job of bringing those folks back.
And I have to say, on every one of these charts, every one of these metros that we look at, I end up always looking at DC, Baltimore first. We have been working on DC and Baltimore since before the airport came in and provided lift. They are the slowest changing number on all the markets of Houston. Is a very fast changing number. But then you do get some encouragement like this graph, which if we've converted anybody out of Baltimore, they're very loyal, and it would make you continue to believe it's worth the effort there, even though that might be one of the hardest nuts to crack, because there's a huge amount of households that are lookalike households for us there, and they spend a ton of money, and we're seeing that there is some really strong loyalties there. But hands down, it's probably the toughest place where we spend a lot of money to move the needle.
Looking at flying behavior, drastic differences across origin markets here, as you would expect. Washington, D.C., Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Chicago, all of those are primarily fly markets. Then traveling with children. I'm not sure that I would even offer an explanation for this. As you look at the data there, if anybody has any insights on why we see that ranking?
Is it their grandchildren?
Bringing the grandchildren?
If they're snowbirds or winter visitors, are they bringing grandchildren that are maybe on fall break or?
It could be that, and it could be that if you're going to come from Dallas, Fort Worth, make it worth your while, pack up the SUV and bring the kids and stay for 6 or 8 or 10 nights.
Well, even though it's winter, I mean, those families with kids that are younger than the age of 5, and there are a few places that have passion for us, like Dallas, Fort Worth, and so we see those people here. But this map is a hard one to find trends from metro to metro for sure.
What about coming to visit grandparents that are here for snowbirds?
Holidays, trips, it's a great observation.
Does it account for second homeowners? That might be bringing their family over, when it's off season, it's not rented, is when they bring their family over?
Could be a part of that, but that's a fairly small percentage of our total visitor makeup.
And if you look at the last one and this one, like if you look at Minneapolis and Detroit, you have people only 7% and 5% flying in. That's partially due to flight, but also if you look at the next one, the percentage of bringing children, you can kind of tell that's probably where you're getting more of your snowbirds. Because if you're coming down for a long period of time, you're packing up the car and you're driving down.
With the household income, D.C., Houston, some of the larger metro areas, you would expect to have high incomes, and then we get down to some of the closer, smaller southern markets with lower income levels. And that's it. Any questions?
The spend includes travel expense as well, or just the spend while they're here?
That's one.
Just here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, and I think it goes without saying, the winter is the least like any other quarter that we have. The spring, fall, summer there's less variances between household incomes and behaviors. This is the odd quarter. Household income is one that jumps to me. 120 household income in the winter. 154, I think, is the largest household income we've tracked in another season in a different quarter. So that's a pretty notable variance.
John, just one
Yes.
comment to Tracy as a sidebar to your snowbird question. The visitor center, we have about 20,000 visitors a year, and in February, we average about 1,500. And one of our questions that we ask is, where are you from? How long are you staying? And it's, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, Canada, and they're here 2 or 3 months, and we see them multiple times in the visitor center coming in for, what's happening this week, or I've got family coming in, what is there to do with them? So I think maybe if we do a winter study again, maybe we can somehow incorporate those folks into.
I know they're a very important part of our
Yes.
winter business, and I just wasn't feeling them
Yes.
as results.
But they do, a lot of them come into the visitor center.
Well, if there's no further discussion, we'll move on with John presenting the grand working schedule.
Yes, you have a bunch of spreadsheets in your package which are nearly impossible to see because there's so much on them. And we can dive into anything you want. I will refresh your memory that 2 months ago when we were here, we talked about the proportional split between digital, print, TV, radio. We listed all of the titles for you that we had been in, that we intend on being in. So basically what we're showing you today is that we have followed through with what we talked about 2 months ago. The co-op program has been approved, and we'll get to that in a minute, but you have got both paper and digital copies of the spreadsheets that demonstrate the titles, the months, how it's paired with advertorial sections or special sections that the magazines are offering, and it is broken down by channel. So you've got television, radio. You also have the co-op sales behind it, which again, the BCC has approved that portion. The rolled up and total portion will go with the budget forward. Beach safety is basically just shadowed in because we won't start working on that until next February. Reserve plan, most of you know that for 2 years, this will be the third year, we have budgeted and deployed 10% of the funds out of shoulder season, which is product development is what the pennies call, and out of emerging markets that were unanticipated revenues or were unspent and are sitting. We're no longer collecting emerging markets, which is a low-cost airfare carrier, but there are still in excess of $3 million in that bank account. So this is a plan to deploy $356,000, which is a 10% number. So the number may change a little bit through the final budgeting process, but you know, those dollars were meant to be put to use, and so this is one way to do it, even though more came in than was put to use in the past. So that is included. Brand activations very generally are discussed. Houston, I think even if you just paid attention to the maps, that answers why. Nashville, New Orleans, Visit Florida has some things going in some markets that we care about very much, like Chicago. And so there's dollars, again, that are being put to a purpose in the biggest of markets that we have. And then there's some roll-up that basically talks about the total spends. It's a lot, right around 6 million of efforts by this organization, but of course there's a $20 million annual revenue through tourism. So in that sense, it's rather modest. There are some people that, of course, are crazy aggressive about that, but this one is a pretty balanced plan. Does anything jump off the page to you? Again, you've seen lists of this. This absolutely accomplishes the pie chart where digital was 42%, and we talked about out of home being a very small sliver, 2% to support some of the activations and digital placement. So this plan accomplishes what we talked about before. Anything specific? Wonderful.
Moving on to update of on the event grants.
Yes, this is just a verbal update. PAM committee, which is a mirror of this group in many ways, has undertaken this year's applications. We received 26 large events, which is down just a little. I think we had 28 or 29 by the time some of the shuffling happened last year. The total ask is $769,000. The budget for this is much closer to $500,000, but that's not unusual at all. Everybody asks for the maximum amount. They're evaluated. The committee, the other committee evaluates them. The scoring metrics gives full points if it's not in peak season, deducts points essentially, or makes some points unavailable if it is in peak season, so that we try to incentivize for the spending. There's a couple of serious events that didn't make the deadline. It's always uncomfortable, but we have to deal with this first, and it will eventually go to the TDC and to the BCC for approvals once all the processes done, which we expect will be within a week or two.
Yeah. And then June 8th, it goes to the TDC.
And then the north, update real quick on the north.
Right.
Some folks may not even know what that is. So.
For the record, Campbell Watkins, Director of Sales, for those that are viewing this. For the past 2 years, the TDC and the BCC has allocated $30,000 for North Walton events. So this will be the third year. For the first 2 years, we had 4 applications for that $30,000. This year, we have 7, so we're really excited about that. The ask is $38,000, and again, we have 30, so not everybody will get what they ask for, but we're excited that they're paying attention to this, and they're applying for the application. The application is basically the same as the South Walton application, but a little different in South Walton is heads and beds. North Walton is more, is this event an event that South Walton visitors would want to attend or residents would want to attend, both north and south. So again, we're excited about this. We met 2 weeks ago and that committee ranked those events. And then we'll do some internal looking at that and then we'll take that to the DDC.
Can you give us a quick rundown of what the events are?
Sure. The 7th annual Marble Flight, which was just last week, and he doesn't have all those numbers in, but approximately 6,000 people attended that, and they have all kinds of airplanes and seminars, and they take you up in the helicopters, and they were on Channel 7 and Channel 13 multiple times. The 2016 Back to School Bash, the Bay Fest up in Defuniak, Chautauqua Winery Spring Festival. They hold a fall festival, and now they're wanting to do a spring festival on their grounds where the winery is. Lake Fest in Freeport, and Nick's Kids Catfish Tournament, and Old Nick's Redfish Roundup Fishing Tournament. So, it's varied. Any questions?
It's one of the things we've done for the first time, the Marvel of Flight. Phillips ground team has come in and done consumer research on how much folks are spending, where are you from. Some of you have seen those. We time to time bring those forward. We did one at Marvel of Flight, first time we've ever done one for Northern event. We don't expect, to have millions of dollars worth of economic impact, but at least we'll have something as a perspective for those beyond the community relations value and the civic pride that exists, even though it's outside the district. So we'll be able to share that with you, I think, by the next time that we meet, perhaps, and give you a little bit of a follow-up to that perspective.
And that event actually put heads in beds because a lot of those planes, flew in and they needed a place to stay. And there was a bus from, was it Miami, that brought a lot of veterans up. So it could be bigger and bigger and bigger every year. Exciting.
John, I'm sorry to
Yes,
repeat yourself, but will you say the numbers again for the South Walton event budget?
26 events submitted by deadline, asking for $769,000.
Okay.
I think maybe it's helpful.
500.
Those events, of those events which we had prior, they were granted $420,000. Plus, there's a couple of that had not been granted anything. But we're probably going to end up around the $500,000 budget. Last year, the ask was well over $800,000 for funding. It is important to add that whatever the grants end up being doesn't mean that's what's going to be reimbursed. We hope everybody deploys the dollars to reimbursable efforts. We also, as an organization, then produce digital and radio to try to support timely attention. You should come, save the date. There's several $100,000 in the media plan that we just went through to do nothing but say, you should be here in April because South Walton's a great place with all the culinary, with all the wine. You should be here in the fall. So these organizations are supported, but then we promote them as well.
So they're not a approved signature or one of those events, then they will not receive.
Correct. At this point, last year, 29 got some additional bump from us through radio and digital. And again, non-peak season, when occupancies are often below 50%. And so that's I think that this program's been built on for a long time, which is we're not really telling anybody to get here in June anymore. We're trying to give people impulse to come in the non-peak.
Is there a reserve account or
That comes straight out of annual budgeting, that all those dollars are.
and last year I know there's some late entries that,
There has been contingency dollars put in place. I think it is accurate to say the only organizations that have received contingency funds were if, I'm going to soften that, I'm sorry. In most cases, it's if the event didn't exist at the time the application closed and somebody showed up and said, we have this new thing, it just fell in our lap, it's awesome, would you consider it? And the executive, it's written as though the executive director has the ability to consider that in the past. We have, I will say, many times declined to call contingency that you missed the deadline that the other 29 people met. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule, and I think there's going to be some tough considerations that need to be given because if it's mutually beneficial, then it's mutually beneficial. But there's very limited funds. I think it was like $25,000. So that's not going to change potentially big issues or big contingencies. And the last thing that yes.
Well, it reminds me, we heard from an event, that was a new pop-up event last time we were here. Whatever it is.
Oh, the fishing?
The fishing, yes. Did anything?
I don't think it would fall into this category of a ticketed event. I think it would fall into a media opportunity.
the television show that, actually the TDC board approved.
Actually, that's on the next agenda.
It's coming soon.
Hold
Oh, it is?
that, hold that.
No, it's good. It's a good question. The last thing that I think is fair to at least just plant a seed is that with this program, which is, goes back to autumn tides. 2003. And I remember the days when we were trying to figure out how to deploy $75,000 to all events. Tracy was in the same boat. And it's grown to a program that's $500,000 with more asked and then hundreds of thousands stacked on top of it. I hope for 2018 we can have some really good conversations internal and with organizations like y'all to ask ourselves, is there a better way to spend this money to help these events? I am extremely confident that if there is a $35,000 grant to help the wine festival that just occurred, that a powerhouse agency could place those dollars, negotiate for added value, and get more reach and bang than possibly. I mean, I love Stacey Grady. She's not here today, and I picked that event as a bad example because she'd be the one who could do it. But in most cases, it's a volunteer organization. It's a group of community citizens. They might not have buying power nationally like this organization would. So I could see a situation where we could get 50% more for our dollar if we were deploying it and take the nightmare that it is to go through the reimbursement process, which everybody basically wants to jump off a cliff at some point in that. And without exaggerating, 500 hours, 700 hours of time dealing with the paperwork related to those event grants in this building. That might be underestimating. Wow. So it's kind of crippling, and it's certainly not the best way to do it. But if somebody thinks we're taking something away from them, that would be very sensitive. But I would see it as we're trying to give you more help. So, but fiscal 17 is gone. That application is gone. We'll be talking about 18, but it relates very heavily to this conversation today.
Is that something?
And 18 comes out in January. So if we're going to make some changes.
Is that something that could be negotiated in advance with the marketing partner, like in the negotiations with Zender? We
would assign it to them, and we would tell them that we expect you to deploy this. And there would be percentages that would be due for trafficking media, but the buying power and the ability to gain average value would outweigh the 11% fee that might be there. And if you remember, we're already placing radio and digital for the event. So
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me as far as the burden on this organization. We're not cash poor in that situation, but we want the absolute best call to action. Heck, we should be retargeting people probably for these events instead of just doing CPC or just doing display. So I'm just trying to get your thought process advanced a little bit, and if it's not something that there's will to do, that's fine, but there's been a bunch of conversations for a long time in this building, and so I thought that we would at least put that out there.
I think it's a great idea.
Appreciate that, and if you have any thoughts after it sinks in, you want to share them, you guys know that you can always communicate with Pam and Kelly and me and Jay. We rely on smart feedback, so keep giving it. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Any further new business to discuss?
I don't believe so, which would take us to some updates.
The first one is the TV for fishing.
Yes. As Jim, who is continues to be our liaison to the TDC, which we appreciate very much, you're doing double duty, mentioned, it was taken forth because this group asked for it to be, and considered. There was a lot of questions that didn't have easy answers, so that TDC did say that they felt that it was worth considering and that the BCC could hear what they heard. The BCC did hear and also had a lot of questions, and there wasn't a lot of answers. So we were directed as staff to go back and expand the evaluation of the opportunity. We are doing our best on top of everything else to produce overview, some slides that talks about possible return on investments and time slots and ratings, and hope to take that back the next time that it is in the South, which is coming quick. It's still the $135,000 ask. I think that the price dropped since it was here through this process to make it a little bit more palatable. And an enormous amount of conversation has been going on in different offices in the county. So all I can do is tell you that it's still alive, and we are going to try to bring forth as much statistical information as we can. And I think that there's still just enough time possibly for it to still make it this year, but it's very hard when it wasn't part of this fiscal year plan. Anybody have any thoughts that after they left the room they want to share with us? We'll take them, but that is where we stand at the moment. Okay?
I'll say it was this committee's enthusiasm that pushed it as far as it made it, and they did come back with our direction to try to sharpen the pencil on it. They did drop the price to, I think, $125,000 or something. 135,000. So it did make it through the TDC board, but the Board of County Commissioners, obviously, they don't all see marketing the way that you see marketing. That's one big takeaway I'm getting from all of this.
There's lots of perspectives. Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay.
Wanted to share the fiscal 17 co-op program with you. It will launch next week. It is something that has been done for a long time. Many of you have been in the program in the past. There's over $1 million placed by us that for basically nominal fees, accommodations can promote visitation and packages. 252 opportunities this year, which is up from around 180, I think, mostly because we've incorporated Facebook cooperative efforts as an option. Huge numbers. I think that the households, again, that we know that we're filtering to are typically 175 and up. We've got leisure, we've got weddings, we've got meetings opportunities. The meetings were extremely popular over the last few years, so I think there's actually a few more. The 45 co-op opportunities as compared to 63 is pretty notable. Banners, and again, there's your Facebook ads. 4 different campaigns seasonally, delivered minimum clicks, 60 opportunities, and obviously targeting based on hopefully lookalike attributes. You can buy into the visitor guide, you can buy into the sweepstakes program. Sweepstakes is the #1 generator of leads in this organization. Year-round, there's a couple of spot hits with Midwest Living and Oprah magazines that implode when we turn on the lead generators. There's still usefulness in all mediums, and so as you imagine, this might be going to a marketing coordinator at a rental management company. So in this package, we've tried to give them the basics. That's not something we did a lot of in the past, is sell, but we tried to help our colleagues who are dealing with their budgets and their finance office and their GMs to be giving them this information. So I think, you know, there's a lot to be proud of in the way we're sharing this and giving you circulations and giving you detail about what the publications are in case you're not familiar with, you know, Midwest Living, big circulation, almost 1 million. There's the Oprah one I mentioned, 800,000 circulation, and apparently every one of them wants a visitor guide, it feels like some days. So, same thing, going through a lot of these big hitters. What do the co-op ads look like? I think you know. You're able to get the feature ads on the bottom, which are basically the call to action. Here's the brand, here's the family, but you have call to action for partners. And the same thing when we do spreads, weddings print, some great titles. Again, all titles that are either proven or we have an unbelievable opportunity to have added them into the program. Weddings print, same thing. We are currently working on new creative for weddings print. We've used this one for a long time. There's certainly nothing wrong with this creative. I think it's one of those very emotional images, but some new stuff is in the works. Takes a while to work on that. Same approach. You got all the detail behind Convention South and meetings today, and preview, and smart. And again, these were the most sought after co-op opportunities the last couple of years. So we are proud to be able to give partners the opportunity to buy it. Same thing with meetings. You have got to legitimately provide meeting space. We have SOP criteria for who is a wedding venue and who is a meeting venue. You have to meet that. You can't just buy your way into these deployments. Again, why should you advertise? I think sometimes that sounds really obvious to us, but maybe not to everybody. Co-op program is a huge generator of leads. Obviously, it's extremely trackable. We're talking about banners 4 different times a year. You can buy it for as cheap as $750 per quarter, and you're going to get at least 1,000 leads. We are funding, obviously, much more than that to buy this distribution and to buy these placements. So it's essentially subsidized, or reinvesting the bed tax, which is generated by our partners. So big channels, obvious stuff, Weather Channel, and it's becoming. I think everybody knows it's becoming who has the best data and can you buy their best filtered product to figure out how to get to who you want. It seems like it's about 19 steps these days to figure all that out. But proven deliverables on WeatherBug and CNN and Southern Living and USA Today. Lots of different shapes are available. Almost everything we do is animated so that you're melting our logo, you're then replacing it with the partner's logo. So there's nice visual attraction on all of these. Takes a little more effort, obviously. Yeah, oh, absolutely. And anybody that does produce do the creative on this, then this is your asset if it has any use for you to do on your own page or on some other page. Quick use. I suspect most people that do this have their own, not co-branded, but certainly we wouldn't mind if events, yeah, it's a great example. Most of them are not producing a digital set of toolbox prior to working with us. Again, minimum clicks, we'll run the program until it delivers. Then the Facebook is brand new, so I can't tell you how well it's going to work, but I'm going to chat a little bit, hopefully with you about the roadshow and some of the epiphanies that the industry seems to be making, and I would expect that it is only going to become more successful. Sweepstakes. What is this? Well, 12 times a year, we do significant push, buy audiences that are the right mix, and send this upstream to say, would you, I think in Seaside is either this month or next month. They're dream vacations, there's no strings attached. It's actually the hardest one to get partners for. I think, and Nancy's smirking, and one of the hardest things is are you going to give away comp stays and a voucher for the summer? So we've had some real challenges, but again, more people engage with this opportunity. We say, well, they're professional, sweepstakes enters. Some, but we have really high retention on our monthly newsletter list where these people are not entering and dropping. These people are entering and staying around and receiving all sorts of communications from us. So I think that's
You said professional sweepstakes?
Enter everything, you might win 1 out of 1,000 times. Yeah.
So how much does this cost now?
That is $1,500 plus you got to come up with part of the product too. You got to come up with the stay. So it's not cheap, but we're talking about huge audiences that this is being pushed to. In excess of 100,000 people would see that. Come and stay in a great place like Seaside, Sandusky, or whatever the case is.
And the only thing I would interject right there, John, is June, July, and August, we have a hard time getting anybody to participate in that. Your stay doesn't have to be in June, July, and August. You're just running it during June, July, and August. I think partners think June, July, and August, and they're like, oh gosh. The people, you just make your stay, you want them to come in the shoulder season. So just remember that when if anybody asks you about that.
So you can make it at any time, or it needs to run for like a
We
year?
we require some boundaries,
Yeah.
a minimum of 6
But
months.
they don't have to come during that July timeframe when we're running it. I think that
Blackout dates.
And we cringe when we do the blackout, but we understand that sometimes you have to do it. As long as we can try to explain to them, it's not that we're just dumping product into a sweepstakes. That helps no one if it looks like this is just remnants, remnant room.
I think I ask this every time.
Yeah.
Is this just for bed tax collectors?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna give them a sign.
Even if you're a small bed tax collector?
If you have
No.
One unit?
one unit, the difficulty comes to how can you provide a sweepstakes? You may not have anything available if you rent it.
I mean, but this whole.
The co-op package
The whole co-op package
is accommodations based.
for bed tax collectors.
And I would say
But it
that
doesn't
clearly,
mean you can partner with one of
Oh, absolutely.
the accommodation partners to offer something.
That happens.
From your, you create a package for the sweepstakes that
And
would
you all
include that plus if you want to.
that does happen.
And that's,
And it's hard, but it'd be harder for you on the other end of it to go canvas anybody who signed up for the sweepstakes and say, can I be a culinary component of your sweepstakes? That would be hard, but it does happen. And I think obviously some of this is, I'll get political is even the right word. The 20 million flows through the front desk of Sandusky and St. Joe and Seaside. And then when these programs come back for those participants, it's not their money, it's tax dollars, but those participants, this is the one thing that maybe takes an edge off the fact that Sandusky remitted $2 million to us last year. This is one of the things that is a clear, definitive opportunity generated from them being part of that structure. So that's always been hugely prioritized. I will say that, off subject and jumping ahead, some of the things Visit Florida is going to try to do, which has been with big brands, there really is, with the digital options, I think there is a time coming really soon where everybody, even small businesses, can jump on co-op programs because of the sophisticated efficiency that is coming in the future. And maybe that's something that we'll learn from too, when they're dealing with some of the biggest companies in the world that are making stuff that we can't buy. But if you have partners like Visit Florida, I'm not sure if you are, but I think that that's a game changer coming in the next year, maybe less. So, great questions though. Yes, visitor guide. You saw research today that they're still using those resources to make decisions. You know, you have options. We shared a media plan, and so your stuff is timed when there will be content in publications that is relevant. And you do have to pay essentially in advance. We are not an organization that floats credit and then chases you around the block for your funds. So that's a little bit of a burden. And this is hard and fast. Next night, May 9th, 9 a.m. If you have your submissions, you better send them at 9 a.m. Don't send them at 8:59, they won't be qualified. If you send them at 10, you won't be first in line. So the good news is about this dash, the agency works with us and busts their hump to make sure that we go through everybody's first preference choice and then cycle back around so that at the end of the day, hopefully with this many opportunities, over 200 opportunities, you may not get everything that you want, but you're probably going to get a lot of what you want. And whatever you got, we are confident that it is proven and that it is really affordable compared to what we're spending on it for you. So 1 week, and then it'll take some time to go through who got what and notify, and then start trafficking, because it is a huge project. It takes 100 days to even get to this point, and it'll take another 100 days to chase it for another 220 placements from God knows how many companies.
And is there a form?
There will be,
It's on.
yep, and it'll go posted on the website already, and it's been in Connections, which is our weekly newsletter. So anybody that has done this before or paying attention has that available to them, and again, should be ready to remit at 9 a.m. East Central Standard Time. And Kelly, for currently is your assist, and as soon as it goes live, we're hands off and we let the agency take all of the melee that comes in. Make sense? Okay. Next thing.
Monthly meetings.
Yes, ma'am. I apologize. That's not what I wanted. You have in front of you what is essentially the enormous dashboard. You also have that Excel spreadsheet, but that's just not even right to show you that. So this is the report you've seen many times, and we can run through this if anybody has anything that jumps out. We're happy to stop and talk. Sorry? Yeah. The overall health of the website is not what it should be. Not a good slide to start on, but we are working on it continuously. I believe some of it is the lack of attention that it's getting because we don't have the capacity, but we were having serious load times, and I don't remember if last time we talked about it, our load times were approaching 15 and 16 seconds for all pieces of content for the homepage. It's down to between 4 and 5 seconds now. And that will obviously, doesn't matter why you came to the website or why you bounced, that will still improve those numbers, because in this day and age, you're bouncing. If it's hanging, it's just life.
So I'm not feeling sound like a broken record for a
Yeah.
minute, but have we been continuing to do usability research with this site, and is the consumer finding what they're looking for? You know, I continue to sort of question that. I mean,
Yep.
I love that we went progressive and we did all these things, but now I feel like I'm bubbling around on the site, and
We're stuck in the middle. We went progressive, and then we just launched it, and we didn't do progressive care and maintenance of it.
It's beautiful, but I
I
feel
know
the
it's
same way.
gorgeous, so
Gorgeous, but
I
I
feel
feel the
this
same way.
pull, you know,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, but now I'm scared that it's not doing what it needs to do.
So
People can't
we, and this time just is flying, there's no other way to say it, we definitely want to do that stuff. We had some pretty serious meltdowns with some other issues, so we spent most of our effort rebuilding our interfaces to beach safety, which we lost. The South Walton Fire District had a meltdown with their whole platform. And so we spent of the last 8 weeks since we talked last, we probably spent 6 of them fixing really serious stuff that broke. Now, hopefully, we're back to a point of how do we make this better instead of just chasing breakage. And I am really looking forward to seeing the next set of statistics. I hope there will be some renewed optimism with the load times and the efficiency of it. But I will also say that as soon as we get serious about maybe changing some of our digital, which is feeding these sections, and make that a little more sophisticated, then that's going to change the dynamics again. If this is organic traffic or it is just CPC from some, big, broad bully push someplace, I would expect bounce rates to be pretty high, and I would expect some of the time on
Yeah,
site
but
to
this
be pretty high.
per minute visit, and it's just a lot of really concerning factors. that
I agree.
look at. And
I agree.
Again, I think we've made it beautiful, but I'm afraid that the beauty may be in lieu of some really hard usability with it.
Yep.
And I've been doing some research on some other destinations right now that are really awesome, serving me content I need to know. Now, thinking about
Send it to us. Send us some sites that you think is killing it. I mean, I obviously don't know what their statistics are, but yeah, please do. So again, you can see over time there's all kinds of different trends, some seasonal things that are just part of it, page visits, but the numbers are not going in the right direction since we went to this current version. Big deal. Sources, again, campaigns is a little bit heavier portion. So again, you're going to have a little bit lower numbers if it's totally campaign driven. And there's an awful lot to digest, as you've seen this many times. Desktop, obviously, duration is much stronger than mobile, which again, hopefully with load times on mobile being far superior than what they were, you can see those catch up. We do have tracking, and I would have, if I'd had time to do anything, I would have just dropped the Chicago train performance off of this chart, which would make it far more focused on the live space, the more reasonable space. But I hope that it is reassuring that we are not only looking at where we're placing, but what we're placing, what size we're placing it, and what is performing and sourcing. So we've actually over time sort of suspended a few creatives on some of these towers and banners just because they were consistently weak. Metros, again, this is exactly what you would expect to see because it's where the dollars are being spent and it's where the markets are proven. We had a bunch of anomalies for a while. We settled down to pretty standard expected results. And again, Houston has just been a gold mine for years, everybody knows that. Articles, some of the things that are being digested. Sweeps, again, 37%. Over the last 6 months that I clicked through is pretty darn high, double for our sweeps, the industry average. So these things are doing what they're supposed to. Mobile app is another abandoned soul that we keep putting a Band-Aid on. We got some logos replaced and we did some other fixes. But I think this group, to be a broken record, Tracy has had a conversation 4 or 5 times. It's like, well, mobile enabled, does that replace apps? The big app users are telling you that apps are great. Well, apps are great if you're YouTube and your Facebook and your Instagram or your Disney, you need it to navigate the park. I think it's hard to find people who think apps are great unless you're in that.
I'm going to second that. I feel like people have app fatigue. We just launched an app, which is awesome once you realize when you're here and all your door codes and everything is in it, but getting people to download it initially is, they're like, really, I have to download another app? We're like, oh, but I promise it's going to be worth it. But yes.
I found a lot of people just don't want to download the apps. They don't want
Yes,
to
take
clutter up their
space
phone
and-
with
yeah.
that.
Well, how many apps do we
have
all
one
have on our
too,
phone
but-
right now? 20, and there are ones that we have day-to-day, love for, and we find all these things cluttering and eating space. So for a destination especially, if I was coming here, and even if I was going to download this, I would be dropping it as soon as I wasn't here. So is that a marketing tool?
I think you're better with a responsive website, and I'm just sitting here studying this page that shows, again, your bounce rate and your usability off mobile devices being.
Well, it makes that 2x. It makes that a 2x problem if you don't have an app. But I mean, we're talking about, 8,000 downloads. In the big world, it's a spit. The thing that is very painful is over its life, the amount of money that's been put into it and the amount of struggle that it has required. So to walk away from it feels awful. I mean, you're talking about several $100,000 over the last, 6 years, 5 years? But for the app development, app upgrades, app migrations, app.
Sometimes in business,
Right, you have to cut.
you gotta know when to.
I honestly think we're there, and I asked the agency last week to produce me a kill strategy. Again, it hurts me.
On the website,
but-
obviously,
Yeah.
never gonna be able to go away, and bringing it up.
And so the agency who built our website, their involvement now with us and what,
Long gone.
going on?
And we basically tried to adapt it and evolve it, having, this is LKM and Outpost.
Oh, yeah, I'm saying the app, I'm talking about the website.
Oh, no, Miles is
still in.
we have a years of support for them, about 14 hours a month. To give you perspective, we spent 35 hours the previous billing cycle when we had all of these things blow up in our face. Nobody's fault.
Right.
Stuff happens. And so,
I just feel like I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, is there a game
Can we
plan
start
for
with
the
that?
website?
the game plan needs to be that
Well, they
we do
can
usability
pitch this.
studies and we find out if the changes we've made have changed any of the behaviors, what usability weaknesses do we have. And I'm not going to get into this lobbying situation, but we built that site so that we could feed it the latest, greatest information every day, which for 2 years was a person, and then we hired nobody. So the thing went cold when we launched it because we would have to sleep here at night to add that to our current workloads. And that's terrible of me to get into that, but I want you to understand it wasn't because we didn't want to.
And I feel like,
Yeah,
I'd like to see
absolutely.
Miles back in this room talking to us about, like, we're your partner, how are we getting through this, how are we bringing you back to
Jay,
life?
that's your.
We need life support.
I have an observation. I mean, I've talked to both Miles and Zender, and it seems like it's falling through the cracks that one thinks the other is responsible for it. And that's just something I think we need to do a better job of really relaying that to them and saying, here's the expectation, this is what you need to do. And, so we need to work on that.
Miles is contracted to take care of everything platform tech related, operational related. That is what is their scope. And Zender is the marketing arm. And right now, the marketing is not working. They didn't build the site. They are still responsible to be our source. And if we think it's functional, like load times,
Right.
all three parties were involved with fixing that.
Well,
Zender
almost like
gave
I'd like
the
to
feedback
see-
that confirmed our suspicion that we directed Miles to fix the load times. So
Because I
it's an
think it's a
example.
joint problem, because I see the campaigns
Absolutely.
are driving the traffic, so in Zender's defense, they're getting people there, but then once they're there, they're
It's
not
the
getting what they
dynamic
want.
in between right there. Is it an
Yes.
effective platform, and is it, when you turn it on, is it doing what it needs to both? That's a hard thing to adjust. Again, it was a radical change that we killed the old one and said, we're just going to do everything new.
How much are we currently spending on this mobile app?
We only spend when we decide we need to do a repair or fix, and then there's some small hosting stuff, but that's not significant. The issue is if we're going to invest in it, you're going to spend $120 an hour for anybody's time to work on it, and so I can't imagine anybody saying right now that we should be expanding our budgets to spend more time fine tuning the app.
In fact, if we were to take a vote, how we.
Well, funds that could be put into efficiencies and finding adjustments to the mobile-enabled content that we're putting out. Okay, good. Again, app engagement was up, number of screens and number of minutes, but by a very small amount of users. So, hey, yay! Social numbers, I think you all probably experienced this. Instagram still continues to be the one that is the fastest adopter. Here's a little snapshot. Obviously strong, basically everywhere. Pinterest is the only one that, why are we doing it? It doesn't take much time to throw a few photos on there every once in a while. So, Facebook audience, very solid, 231,000. One of the things that is positive about this is, we spend money to appeal to folks and we convince people to follow us. We don't have a very significant attrition rate. We really do keep the fans. And so we make the fans, keep the fans, and it is a nice, solid growth rate. We track where the most attention occurred, obviously. We've seen big spikes. You can see what happens when we do a shoulder season emerging market video campaign with a large amount of spending related to it. We went through the roof last year on that day in March. And you guys know what our posts look like. Here's just another metric as to how that channel performs. We basically always trail Amelia, Hilton Head, and Sowall. Sowall is a very different site than us. They're a bulletin board and a blog more so than we are, so you get points in this metric for conversations ongoing. And then Amelia and Hilton spend an enormous amount of money, but you've seen that we're not going to spend a little bit more money in Facebook because it's not a shallow spend anymore. It used to be thought a little bit of a shallow spend. But click-through goals, very, very strong. Obviously, always adjusting terms for SEM, pages, bounces, trends. This is the report for the co-op program, which has been running, was running. And we talked earlier about guaranteed clicks, where you can actually see that the partial program and the larger programs, goals 2, goals 1, had already exceeded, and we still had like a month to go on this. So when you buy these programs, not only do we guarantee it, but we're almost overrunning a lot of these 30%. Not trying to, it's just, again, buying power and added value. You've got placements out there that are getting picked up, which is great. Online performance, impressions versus desktop. The 0.61 click-through rate for mobile versus industry average 0.28 is pretty significant. And again, those digital ads that are talking about events are pretty appealing to people if we've served them to the right audience. So you should have higher than the general click-through rate if they're targeted proper. Lots of campaigns running to do beach safety and general brand. And we had a Chicago train kiosk takeover with Visit Florida. Some really nice numbers, interactions, activations. They were able to do photo booths and post. Instagram takeover by Coastal Living magazine, which was pretty cool. They did 5 of us in their channel and 6,700 video views out of their 111,000 followers. So very flattering brand impressions. We've got stuff running on Visit Florida as part of the TV series, which was just basically an extra. Banners on Southern Living, 2.6 million. Best of the South newsletter, biscuits and jam. This was all related to the big anniversary celebration that they had. You've seen a couple of the videos, I believe, and we'll be showing some probably 2 of those videos tomorrow at the Chamber Luncheon. And by Thursday, we expect all those videos to transfer back to our ownership, and then we will be able to host them on YouTube and share them. And we would hope that some of our neighbors and friends who had glimpses and features would also do that. So we think there'll be a long life of that, which is just about to start. That is the short report of the analytics. And again, you can go read the numbers on your own time. There is one more sheet of paper in there worth glancing at, and it is the final co-op partner interactive performance. And again, you can see that everybody got far in excess, as much as 36% over delivery on guaranteed clicks. So we're proud to do people right. when it comes to that sort of thing. That takes us to, oh, I'm sorry, I should give you one more on the analytics. You had a loose leaf Spring O'Brien. It was not in the materials. We just got it yesterday. And I'll be happy to send it to you if that's helpful. The Travel Media Showcase was here, and we just grabbed some of the initial recaps. Who was here in attendance. There was a lot of sessions that were centric to what they wanted to do, but of course then they got to experience a great many things in South Walton. We were trending for about 6 hours at one point on Twitter during the conference, and you can see some of the flattering issues on the loose leaf that you have, with circulations anywhere from 63,000, 29,000, 100,000, 2.25 million for National Geographic Traveler. We do expect still to get some follow-up from folks like that publication I just mentioned that were further interested in what's going on here. So this is just the initial, and at some point we'll be able to sort of roll all this up and give you one big juicy number. Gala carried an enormous amount of weight on that one, having had that passed basically from Carrie, who's no longer with us. And the rest of the team jumped in, and I'll say any partner that had anything to do with it, from Lori to Hilton to Sandestin, it was a huge burden, but as we expected, everybody did wonderful and showed why we are a truly elite place in the world of travel. Speaking of the chair that is empty, we have made an offer and do have acceptance for a new communications coordinator, which is basically travel media relations. Zach will be joining us in just a little over 2 weeks. And so hopefully you'll start seeing another face in that role. I know the team will be looking forward to that day when somebody is here to do that work besides us. But we're excited that he'll be a great addition. He is very enthusiastic about all the extra stuff that goes on beyond beach season, and so it could be a really good fit. We have our fingers crossed.
I'd just like to echo
Yes.
that. I had the fortunate opportunity to meet this group and see Gala in action, for someone who was new, just getting her bearings. I thought she did an amazing job. The group complimented her, and again, just to shed light, this was an amazing group of people that they brought to our destination to experience South Walton. Everybody from Andrew Nelson, editor-at-large of National Geographic Traveler, who is now really excited about kind of helping us to pinpoint and emerge some stories and some pitches. We're looking at maybe bringing him back through our Florida Public Relations Association for some workshops. Everybody from the Parents Magazine travel editor to Family Fun editor. I mean, it was just really an amazing national group, including some bloggers and travel, all focused on millennials. And I personally learned a ton about millennials. They weren't an audience that I really had my eye on for this conference. And I just thought it was really great. And kudos to the team for bringing them here. It's fantastic.
Appreciate that.
I'd like to reiterate that. I was there too. Lisa, Family Vacation Credit, she continues to post.
Which is fun. She's one of the first media we had hosted way back in the day, and she was still on message 10 years later, so we thought that was pretty fun.
And we did talk about bringing some of these people back for FPRA, so this morning and our other morning. So it was a great group and very well coordinated. And I mean, I know Gailey just came in on it on the back end, so
well,
kudos
thank
to
you guys who all jumped in and helped and were helping me. And is it Lisa or Lisa?
Lisa.
It's Lisa. Everybody was helping to corral everybody when we were out and about too. And she jumped in also, which was wonderful.
Awesome.
And
I guess finally kudos to Spring O'Brien for, reaching out and setting this up. And,
we've been definitely invited some back to host in the
Absolutely.
area. Yes. And the whole staff. I mean, everyone that was just a great thing that we did. And I remember us talking about this way back when as a committee and trying to decide if we wanted to do it.
It's almost a year of effort
yes.
to wrangle all of that, and it's it's a little much for a small destination. We relearned a few lessons over it, but when you look at the potential and the flattery that is out in the world
And how many people said, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was almost 80% of attendees had no familiarity with this, which obviously, I actually used to call that a weakness. It's just opportunity. There's many more people who will love this place, and we can tell them in an orderly fashion going forward, and that is all upside. That is not really anything that's broken at this point. So thank you to you guys for all the time and effort that you put into that. Two more updates. Visit Florida Digital Roadshow. Was very fortunate to go and be a representative of this state and this destination last week. We met with Adobe, Facebook, which of course is Instagram, Twitter, Airbnb, Uber, and it was pretty intense. It was fun, but it was pretty intense. We spent 13 hours on campus at Facebook. So it was a fire hose experience for a lot of people. But I think last year I might have been in November, I think when we got back I mentioned to you that the big takeaway was Airbnb was going to try to take over the world, and it looked like they were going to do it. Well, they're up to 2 million offerings now on Earth, and don't seem like they're slowing down very much. But I have to say the biggest single takeaway is the solution that all those companies have been seeking for such a long time, to not try to track devices and conclude if purchases were made or travel has occurred based on as many similarities as possible. They have basically connected, they can track you now. And that freaks some people out. In our world though, that is the most relevant piece of information imaginable. Think about the day when you were on your phone at work at lunch and you're dreaming about that beach vacation that you want to take. Maybe you were served an ad and you clicked on it. That's reported as an analytic, right? Well, you go home to your laptop computer, you then book your vacation, and there's a total disconnect from your mobile device. And then when again you're in destination, you have other exchanges. The short sample story is that we heard it from Adobe and Google was the other one, and Facebook, is that they now are tracking you as an individual. And they can do so for a 90-day period. So when I clicked on the beach ad 60 days ago, when I came home and booked it on a different device, and when I was actually in market, they know I did all those three things as one user. So what that does for analytical reporting and saying what you spent and what your customer actually did, we don't need the med tax collector anymore to try to give us their stays from last month and match it to people who signed up for your newsletter, or the Navis programs or any of these other things to try to demonstrate that you, if you're not a retailer, that action has been taken. Stunning. And they can't do that for any more than 90 days, like I said. They can't have data on your consumer behavior. They are currently working with lobbyists to extend that window, which for travel is an enormously relevant thing, because if you're clicking on the beach vacation in January and you take it in June, they cannot connect the two right now. Or they're telling you they're not connecting the two right now. Whether they can do it or not, I guess, is a different situation. So Adobe is clearly trying to take over the world with their content managing. About 7 different channels they're able to sell large companies for everything. And I mean, at this point, they're dealing with Under Armour, Nike, Mercedes, and maybe Visit Florida. And you'd have to come to the table with 20 million probably to play in that world right now. But Visit Florida is changing almost everything they do related to digital. They are going to go full bore with Adobe and have the best tool that's available right now for all efforts related to content delivery, tracking, reporting. And they are going to launch in some enormous partnerships with some of those big players, again, that we couldn't individually buy, but their intent is they're going to try to exploit their buying power to then make it available to the next layer and the next layer. So some would say maybe they're doing that right now with co-ops. This is a completely transformative approach to things. So very fascinating. I'm expecting maybe the decks from a number of those presentations, which I would be happy to post and share, and maybe have another follow-up. I got back Saturday night. There's still, I have to look at my notes. It's all over the place with the information given to us. But yeah, dramatically different than last time. And then maybe the last, just a little curiosity, Uber. I think everybody knows Uber. Many people know Uber Black and Uber XL, and they've probably heard about Uber Eats and maybe Uber Share, but Uber Chopper, which is you can get helicopters in some areas. They'll have some sort of Uber Senior product in the near future where folks that maybe shouldn't be driving or can't drive need to get to medical appointments, get to hospitals, driverless cars. So pretty soon you'll be able to Uber a driverless car, and it still sounds a little bit like science fiction, but when you stand in those offices and you see what they've accomplished in a short amount of time, and you look in their eyes when they tell you 2 to 3 years driverless cars at Uber, maybe it's 3 to 4, it's coming. And again, the amount of data that they have about the user through all commerce process with no breaks because of device is makes them the smartest of any entity that has ever existed. And so it is stunning to see how fast. And every staff member in all those buildings, I have speed burns. Everybody is like, because those companies are moving so fast that they can't keep up with themselves. It is the disruptive growth chart anymore. It's not a bell curve, it's a spaceship. So I will do my best to give you a couple more sane notes of massive amount of hours of that stuff. And we need to do a really good job of communicating when Visit Florida announces that they're enacting some of these new beta programs. Again, with 2 of the companies, Visit Florida will be the beta partner, be the first ones to deploy some of this stuff. So Visit Florida is becoming very aggressive. They want, hands down, to be the #1 visited place on the planet, and they intend to use technology to do it. So pretty significant. Again, I'll try to share those decks. Maybe raise a few more questions and have a few more factoids. Last part of RFP updates. The PR one is closed. We had 6 companies, including the incumbent, Spring O'Brien, apply. We'll be reviewing those next week, and potential invitations for a couple of weeks after that. Potential decisions, hopefully, by the summer, middle of summer. The marketing RFP has hit the street and will be open for about another month. And so we're quiet on conversations regarding that portion. Have only received 1 question to date on that. Had some good questions on the PR one. Some of the same people who raised interest and submitted in the last one have submitted again, so there's a lot of familiarity there. But those will be 2 transformative things for us as in fiscal 17, who are our big partners. So by next meeting, I'll probably be able to tell you who PR is, and maybe it'll give you an update on who submitted for marketing. That was an enormous amount of updates. Did that trigger any questions or thoughts or complaints?
Okay.
Hand it back.
This is the part of our meeting where we turn it over to the public. If you have any questions, topics to discuss, feel free to introduce yourself and let us know what's on your mind.
I have a question.
Sure.
In these fellas' reports, there were a list
Would
of...
you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Capri Munjum. I'm with Beach Sand Sculptures. We're the people that do the sandcastle lessons. I saw a list of beach names, and there was Santa Rosa Beach, and then all of the beaches that were in Santa Rosa Beach. So I'm a little bit confused about what that information really is saying. I mean, is Santa Rosa Beach a different location than Watercolor and Seaside, or how is that being determined?
So I think it's best I take a shot at answering that. When you're talking about marketing strategies, we are a collection of 16 beach neighborhoods on the Gulf of Mexico. Beyond that, there's no civic, land use, zip code related issues. It is simply marketing strategy. Some destinations tell you that they have amusement parks, white sand beaches, clear water. We tell you that we have Sandestin, Grain Beach, Rosemary Beach, Santa Rosa Beach, Alice Beach. So we have 16 in the market family. And so you're seeing research that asks consumers, what neighborhood did you stay in? What neighborhood do you have, history with? And so it's hard because there is no other structure that contains those 16. It's simply strategy and marketing the brand.
But when I see Santa Rosa Beach, aren't all of those?
Not for marketing, because the truth is, in Santa Rosa Beach includes Blue Mountain, June Allen, Seaside, Watercolor is Santa Rosa Beach technically.
So I'm looking at his information and I see a number for Santa Rosa Beach and a number for Blue Mountain Beach.
So there's two things relative to a good question. A, the person we ask may have some confusion about where they are if it's not in Seaside proper or Watercolor downtown. So you could get some answers. Many times what we do is show people a map if they get stuck, and I can actually show you the map of how those boundaries are drawn. So Santa Rosa Golf and Beach Club's beachfront is the westernmost part of Santa Rosa Beach, but Gulf Place sits basically on top of Santa Rosa Beach, and then it picks up again Santa Rosa Beach, Growler Garage, and everything in the 98 corridor is considered Santa Rosa Beach. But the map will maybe help a little bit, but it is very confusing and very burdensome, but I'll also say it's probably the greatest advantage we have over any other destination because nobody can tell you that we're offering you a menu of 16 beaches that all have their own personality. So there's a definite pros to it.
And 20 names.
Make up your own name down here for a lot of things.
Is the question open-ended? I mean, are they asking where people went, or are they giving people a selection of choices? Because if it's open-ended, I would say some people might know that Santa Rosa Beach is Seaside, so they might say Santa Rosa Beach even though they're in Seaside.
They might.
It's a listing of those. It's a listing of those.
It's a listing. Okay.
And so if you're in Seaside, you're not going to say you're in Santa Rosa Beach. But if you think maybe you're in ambivalent world, maybe Santa Rosa Beach gets some defaults.
Well, and from our business point, we get people, all along 38 who think they're in Destin.
And that's another issue which I failed to update you on. Sorry, the water tower. Currently, what is essentially an assignment agreement has been drafted and trafficked to county legal. Sandestin continued to let it be known that they were very passionate about that surface, and the commissioners, and I think even council, was a 6-3 vote in favor of it, if I'm not mistaken, to consider assigning that. And so I'm fairly optimistic that the lawyers think that it is clear that that will be transferred and Walton County will be hands-off, which of course is very different than what this group conveyed on a couple of occasions, but such is the process that not at all times do we all agree on everything. So.
I did voice your opinion, this board's opinion in the meeting, but.
So what am I hearing? They're just going to go back to Sandestin,
So it's
on the tower?
Pretty much.
Quite likely they will take over.
Pretty much we lost the tower.
Okay, got it.
They will take over with the remaining 5.5, 6 years and brand it to their satisfaction, and we would be reimbursed for the prorated amount of the term that would no longer be branded ours.
So I have a silly question along the same lines of the neighborhoods. Why do we not use 30A in any of our branding?
We've started to.
And I'm new, so I just don't know the answer.
It's true.
Okay.
We've started to embrace that a little bit more, in that Scenic 98 is an attribute and an attraction, and Scenic 30A is an attraction. And so you'll see that starting to show up more in our pocket maps. We're working literally on beach towels right now, which depict Scenic 98 and Scenic 30A as a thing. I think that the 38 company did a marvelous job of basically owning that, and maybe there was some standoffishness about it, but 30A is a county highway, and so certainly we're not going to brand infringe on anybody.
Sure.
And I think that the relationship's the best it has ever been with 30A, the company, but we are going to continue to talk about that. And in fact, in Houston, we have a big activation. We're the summer-long sponsor of the Cynthia Woods concert series in the Woodlands. And 30A and YOLO Board were supportive in what we wanted to do there, which was we have an enormous South Walton backdrop of all the beaches, 40 feet. But you can go and take a picture with a paddleboard or with a bike as though you are here. And if you hashtag it, Visit South Walton, you have a chance to win those things. You also, if you step over to the high-tech vending machine and you use the hashtag that you are given in that post, it will dispense branded goods from South Walton, like Tervis tumblers, t-shirts, flip-flops, to you, and your currency is your hashtag. It doesn't cost you anything. And so the cooperative nature, and let's face it, in markets like that, that brand, that recognition, that word 30A is just one more thing to exploit. Yeah, and we're not exploiting their brand, but exploiting the awareness that exists of those things, just like the awareness of Seaside and just like the awareness of Sandestin. It's one more way to build the global brand of, like, I know what all of that is. And the percentages are very low, as you saw in winter. Winter's one of the lowest for that knowledge. However, over the last 10 years, all those percentages continue to go up. So slow is okay as long as it's growth. And in places like Little Rock, Arkansas, the use of the term South Walton, I think, was 33%, 35%, an enormous number. It's a new market, so you weren't carrying as much baggage as you may have carried in years past for Destin or other places. So lots of areas awareness is 35% using a term that actually doesn't exist on a map. I think is pretty high. And Google, actually, not to too much of a tangent, Google, I had a conversation with them, they said that they will help if they can in any way, shape, or form, because they understand Florida statute and county lines, and that South Walton is an entity even though we're not incorporated. That could be enormous. So we're going to try to follow up on that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your question, by the way. Any others?
I just wanted to say, I was looking forward when I was thanking you guys that helped out with TMS, and I missed two that are here in the audience, Capri being one of them with beach sand sculptures, but also Safewell and the Frozen South Walton Sea Turtles. The two of them teamed up and did our pre-tour on the first day of the conference, so I just wanted to thank them.
Thank you.
Ron, did you have a question?
Just any feedback on the Food and Film Festival? It's a new one for us, right?
It was, got partial funding based on what was asked. They did manage to make the deadline and apply again, that they had intention to do it. I know, gave Kelly and I some verbal feedback that there was a lot of positives for them. They ended up obviously reducing the rate quite significantly because I think advanced ticket sales were scary for them. But the Bud and Alley's breakfast sold out, right? And everybody that I saw at one of those functions or talked to thought it was really cool, which is what you need from that first year event, which is word of mouth, tell your friends. I think we talked about this a little bit before, a little bit of event fatigue. I mean, there is so much going on for what is a small community. If you don't have this huge word of mouth and this history and traditions, it's a slow start for new things. But I think it was a struggle for some of the venues, but you know, a new event like that's birthing a child, and it's going to be a little painful, I suspect, for some things.
Can I interject?
Yes, ma'am.
It was during spring break.
Yep.
So
Atlanta had just checked out on Saturday, right?
We had been approached to do more with that
Yep.
in Seaside and some others, and we just couldn't do it.
I mean, I know we did Vinales, but.
Well, I know our chefs at our restaurants, we had
You just can't do that.
It was hard for us
We
to
have
pull
no
off.
accommodations already. you
Well,
know,
and it's a good problem to have, right? Go find a weekend when people haven't figured it out that being here is a good time. And there's only a couple of those that I'd say are the case. And so do you want to have a food film festival outside on December 13th? Is anybody going to come to that? So we've grown a lot, and the attendance on all these things are up. But is there some growing pains too? And I think maybe we're seeing it a little bit.
Any chance of a fall day?
I don't know. They, of course, are competing nationally as well. They have stuff in New York, and they're trying to fend off events at Sea Island and try to figure out their puzzle. And by the time they overlay that to our puzzle, pretty tough. Kelly was trying to dig as we were sitting here. 365 attendees, 24 chefs, 11 films, and my eyes don't work that well anymore on the rest of that stuff. Between the awesome chefs we have and the chefs that I saw and tasted, hands down, the most significant prowess in culinary that we have ever had in this county. Hands down. So all the chefs were begging to come back. They thought it was awesome, and they're hoping for big expansion. So I'm hoping the community wants big expansion, but a lot of moving parts for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
have another random. I'd like to congratulate the TDC for winning a Florida Public Relations Association Award of Distinction for your Perfect in South Walton Awards. I think good job, and that's a program that continues to have legs and grow, and I think it unites the community, it communicates the brand to our visitors while showcasing our best attributes. So congratulations.
Thank you. And there's many winners, I think, among us. I wish I had a list. We should read them all, but this community obviously does great work.
Tracy took
Great work you guys do.
Tracy got the rest of them. Yeah, we got one. Thank God. Appreciate
Not you,
that.
it's not you.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Okay, so this is, if there aren't any other questions, we'll move on to questions or comments from our committee. Anything else?
My only would be that I would hope that as a committee we would continue to push, and we don't talk about it very much. I know it's on our mind, but the new South Walton logo and Visit South Walton as a brand. And I don't know if it goes through the co-op marketing or how to get the community, and that's where I think there's a little disconnect for me personally between the big tax collectors and the small community, because all of getting the local businesses and the business community and even the small bit tax collectors behind that brand and pushing that brand. I think there's, I don't know what the percentage is, but I know that there's a big percentage of small business owners out there who probably aren't pushing it, and the big people are because it's required to be on their brand. And so I just don't.
I think we infuse, as a business owner out there in the community, is there things that we can be doing better?
Well, I think you have to incentivize them some way, because you incentivize the big tax collectors, but the little guys don't get it. But I also, pushing that brand across and everything that we've done with it. And so I was a little disappointed to lose the water tower as well. But
Is there a way to encourage partners to incorporate, South Walton into their websites, the new logo into their websites?
Ingredient branding is what you're talking about, and we drafted some concepts about that, and I give credit to Jeff Sender and the team. In talking about this, we saw that as basically the only way to try to adopt 3,000 businesses. We're an unusual model, right? A lot of places have 30 high-rises and a few other support businesses. We have 3,000 independents, basically. So we thought we'd have to put several $100,000 behind that. And I will say the simple answer is timing is everything. There's stuff that we're trying to do right now that we haven't been able to accomplish, or we haven't gotten permission to do or we haven't been able to fund. And so to say, I got a solution, let's do one more thing, is a logistical challenge. But an ingredient program is certainly a way to allow a smaller player to benefit greatly by being part of a bigger machine. I wish it was here quicker. I do believe that where digital is going, it's going to just completely open up, and you'll be able to do just about anything that you can think of in a very cost-effective way, if you're smart. You know, right now, just blasting digital out is not smart, but being able to target people who are interested in paddleboarding and off-season with no kids, we can get to that level at some point in the future. In which case, then every business has a opportunity. So I wish I could make that come faster, but as soon as it's available to us.
Excuse me.
Yes.
One thing I suggested to some other people years ago was the use of the flags and the weather that you all have on the website. That if I put that on my website with a link to that South Walton.
There's probably two relative comments to that. We did have a program like that a while ago with a widget, and it was in a day and age where the compatibilities were so challenging that it basically turned into an IT nightmare. Doesn't mean that's the case anymore, in fairness. And the other is we do have a free service, free language, where you can install it on your Facebook page, which a lot of businesses, that is their business page now, completely free and relatively simple and branded. And so we wish we could get adoption of more of the 3,000 businesses, but the truth is, there's a lot of reasons. One of them is everybody's just so darn busy, it is really hard to stop what you're doing and do more. So I don't think you should be upset about it, but we've got to continue to find ways to adopt each other, because the flip side of all the tech stuff that I'm talking about is you don't need 30 years history and loyalties and traditions if you're just better sourcer for delivering great product through digital in the future. All you've got to be is smarter than everybody else, and you can definitely attract consumers the way it's going. So we need strength in numbers and strength in unity and strength in community for sure, in my opinion. So.
Is there or should there be a line item in the budget for just pushing that icon? Visit South Walton?
I mean, the money you get back from the water tower, you could get like a new person, right? And that could be their job.
There you go.
Yes. There's a lot of things you could do with money, for sure. I will say that I think that we have been relentless with including the brand on anything that we could think of, from coasters to stickers to all of those things. There's some patience that has to be had too. I mean, even 30A, I remember when they launched, and about 1% of nobody knew what the heck that meant. Now they caught wildfire. Kudos to them. But it's going to take some time too. We changed logos 3 times in 4 years.
Well,
if you have any idea who we are, I'm impressed.
Keep in mind that the previous logo, the ones on the tower, when that came out, we created a toolkit. We went around one by one, met with the bed tax collectors, formed that relationship, told them why it was important to adopt that brand, because if you just send somebody something, or you just say, this is what you should do, if you sit down with them and go over all the aspects of that and how they're going to benefit from that, and how as a community we're stronger if we're together, I think that goes a long way.
I remember that, and I thought that was really impactful.
Perhaps that's something the community
Absolutely.
relations person could do.
Absolutely, and again, I think there'll be some more conversations about manpower and structure and related things, hopefully, that will allow us to keep getting bigger. And I think you guys get it. I will say that it's hard because I'm not sure that I've had any success, or we've had any success. People think if this organization gets bigger, it just means there's more traffic. I would say the exact opposite. If this organization gets bigger, it is allowed to spend more time on the details and the quality of things instead of just saying quantity. I don't have time to fine tune it. I don't have time to care for it at a high level. So it's it's 180 degrees, I think, from some of the sentiment in the community is that we want to do things really, really well, and that takes time and attention. And so we shouldn't be scared when we talk about putting time and attention to something. So I'm hoping maybe this group has a general grasp of that, and all your businesses, that to do it really well takes focus and it takes effort and resources. So we'll keep trying to find the voice that helps that happen. I will say in a short story, I'm sorry, I can't resist the topic. Bay County in the last 5 years went from 10 employees to 20 employees. And Visit Florida went in the last 5 years from 40-ish employees to 80-something employees. Our administrative team in the last 5 years went from 17 employees to 17 employees. That's not indicative of what our industry has faced. And I'm sure there's probably some other people sitting in the room that are like, yeah, I know how that feels. But attention and quality is a time-consuming thing. That's my speech, and I'm done.
One quick fix.
Yes, ma'am.
Would be to put just a little notice in the e-newsletter that you sent out, that any business in South Walton that would like to have the South Walton logo can call somebody.
Make it a quick click and easy to
Yeah.
download, and you might only get 5 people clicking through, but that's 5 more.
No, it's okay.
You just keep kind of repeating that.
I think the flip side of that is, though, do you want, the new Bales Bondsman business that's opening up, putting that logo on their website? And do you want the tire recycling center putting that logo on their website? So we need to do it, but it has to be done in a way that's.
Start with best.
Yep. And we basically already have told them that, and again, adoption is low, but we'll tell them again, and to your point, if you hear it more than once, right?
I was thinking, to Jim's point, the small businesses, not the vet tech. Do you have a problem with vet tech collectors even adopting it?
Yes.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Didn't know that.
Some of their brands are stronger than our brand. So United, just think what we could do.
Most of the
No, did you say we have a problem with it? We don't have a problem with it, with vet tax collectors. Is that what you said? We don't have a problem with the vet tax
I just figured that was
collectors.
a given.
You said adoption.
Yeah, no.
We're asking is adoption.
Yeah, no, very few do.
Very good.
Very few.
Yes.
Wow, okay. Interesting. Okay.
Good?
Any other comments? Okay, well, then, just an announcement that the next meeting is June 28th. I assume still here?
Yes, and of course, that's an odd date because of the 4th of July holiday, so your regular reoccurring appointment is not going to help you on that one.
And then tomorrow, of course, is the luncheon.
Yes, ma'am.
So the Sandestin Walton Beach Resort, Maytown, Azalea Ballroom, 11:30 to 12 is networking, 12:01 is the program. Also keep in mind that May 12th in this room from 2:30 to 4:30, May 12th, we will do a meet and greet, so everybody in the industry can meet Jay. So your general manager, your CEOs, whoever wants to come to that, we would love to have them. May 12th on Thursday, 2:30 to 4:30.
Okay. All right. It is 4:55, and it's time to adjourn.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks all for coming.
What's that? Yeah. Good job. So much for getting out early.
I don't know what happened.
Where'd that come from? It was good, very good.
We make a, we